Retention is the biggest challenge in a digital marketing agency business. Like sometimes the campaigns don't work with them. Some of those measurements that you take in order to retain a client.
Getting into the crux very quickly, Sorav. Brands that leave us in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months started off on the wrong foot. They wanted something, or the reality of what we could deliver was very different. Their expectation setting often we've seen helped solve a lot of those problems. And secondly, we also have a very strong
AI in business. How do you think this is going to impact the digital marketing agency business?
We got a brief from a client. In 30 minutes, we had a pitch deck ready because we used a bunch of tools. Basically, 90 minutes from when the client gave us a brief, we had something that we could show them, right? Which is unthinkable.
There's a new terminology for this and it's called the vibe marketer. Somebody who understands the vibe and then is able to pull off the resources to get things done. And these are tech resources, not human resources, because he understands the vibe of the situation. So there's a whole lot of confusion in the digital marketing agency sector today, like especially people who are starting their new agencies. Should I be niche focused or should I create a broad spectrum agency? What would be your answer?
I would to most young talented folks, I would say don't start a traditional agency at all because
why do you think many agency owners feel burnout after some time? I've seen this across. Why do you think so?
Are you not there yet?
Sunil knows it. So if you have to hire a digital marketing person in 2025, what are some of the top 5 qualities that you will see in them to hire them?
Working to build AI agents to do, for example, keyword research and come up with topics that you can write on, right? You don't need a content or a SEO specialist to do that today. Would you recruit a human or an AI agent? Like, I think that's the...
Yeah.
With AI and with whatever's happening around the space, these human connections and networking and events and smaller forums are going to become even more important, right? Because people are going to crave those connections.
Interesting, basically. I think a lot of learnings for people who are going to listen to this podcast because I don't think they prioritize this. And I think you guys have prioritized this because your mentor guided you this way and this is good learning for us. Do you see with time that you're going to cut down your team size by involving a lot of AI agents?
The world is changing so fast that they may not have a job tomorrow. Yeah.
In this episode of Grow Your Influence podcast, you'll hear the story of a 12-year-old digital marketing agency started from scratch, scaled across cities, and got acquired by one of the world's biggest global companies. This isn't just another marketing story. It's one of India's boldest agency journeys, full of real drama, real risks, and some wild lessons along the way. From bagging their first client, to managing a 300+ member team, to building tools, scaling fast, and finally getting acquired, this is not about how to run an agency. This is about what breaks you, what builds you, and what happens when AI walks straight into the boardroom. This is Social Beat Unfiltered. Welcome to my podcast, Vikas and Suneil. It's been a pleasure having you. We started a journey together, but the way you guys have led this path, it's been very inspiring, especially scaling up in different cities, then getting acquired. There is a lot of learning here in this journey, and I think today I'm going to decode all of this. So are you guys ready?
Yes, excited. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
Thanks for the kind words as always, Saurabh.
Thanks, Sunil. So Vikas, you graduated from London School of Economics, and Sunil, you completed your MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. What inspired you both to enter digital marketing when this was not even your subject?
Yeah, I think, for me at least, in my job after LSE, I did a bunch of things at the Burger Park Group. And one of the key roles there was sort of getting into marketing and digital for cycles and the premium cycles. And that's really where I started getting some exposure to it. And actually, they were actually pretty early on doing a YouTube channel. We were creating content for YouTube way back in 2010, 2011. And we had a series of, how do you fix your bike? How do you really use your gears on the bike and stuff. So I think that was a good exposure for me to kind of see there is potential here. And that's really how we got started. At least my journey started in marketing. I think his journey was slightly different. So.
How about you, Sunil?
Yeah, Saurabh. So I think at least for me, it was digital marketing itself was a bit accidental. I think, we started Coolcart, which was a consumer internet startup doing price comparison, etc. I think, that cycle where you have to raise funding and, really scale up at a venture scale. That's something we started doing and we got some traction. But I think we then realized that, hey, a business which generates its own revenue is a much stronger footing than a business where you have to continuously raise venture capital. And that's when, Vikas had also taken a break from the earlier roles. And that's how Social Beat happened, where a couple of brands actually reached out to us. We didn't have a brand name also that time in terms of what to call the organization, but they, reached out, can you help us on digital, etc. And that's how we got our first 2 clients without a brand name. And
Wow.
then we came up with the website name based on a domain which was available at that time.
That's cool. So it was Vikas's idea to start.
So Coolcart was what I started,
remember.
and then Social Beat was where Vikas actually got 1 or 2 inquiries inbound, and he said, "Hey, let's actually do this as a separate business, not as part of the product business, because the DNA of a consumer tech startup and a services company is quite different." So that's how Vikas started it for the first 5-6 months, and then I joined him full time at Social Beat.
So who are some of your top clients right now?
Yeah, I think they spread across multiple sectors. BFSI is one of the bigger sectors. So we have folks like Bajaj Broking, we have Dun, we have brands like Sundram Mutual, which has been a client for many years. And then we have a lot of them which are retail and omnichannel. So right from Go Colors to Indian Terrain to Jacko on the sanitary and bath side, Samsonite, GRD Jewelers. So I think it's a combination of brands across retail and omnichannel, and that's a big piece. And then we have varied, some in health, some in FMCG like Fortune. So it's actually spread across multiple sectors now.
That's good. So BFSI is your stronger segment if I really look at. I think last time, Sunil, when we met, you had told me about this. That's nice. So you told me that you got your first 2 clients, which was very accidental. Somebody approached you. How was the positioning like? For example, I got my clients because I was very visible on Google search results for my blog, and that's how I got inquiries, which made me start my very own digital marketing agency. So what was the reason? Like how did you get your first client?
Our first client actually came via like an event. So where I was speaking at an event of entrepreneurs, and this guy reached out saying, "Would you help us?" He was running a healthcare chain on the dental side, and he said, "Hey, we need leads. Can you help us?" But he said, "I'll only pay you if you're going to get me leads, and I'll pay you by the lead." And we said, "Okay, sure, why not?" We had nothing to lose, and we said, "Sure, we'll do a performance-based sort of fees," and that's how it started.
So basically, that authority positioning of a speaker help you get your first client. I think we always get the best client when we speak at bigger events.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the trust factor, like I said, is super high, and it helps you close faster.
Helps you close faster and helps you close at the price you want because they've seen you there on the stage. The power of position, because I think my first few big clients have always come from there. I think that's what we all need to learn here in this conversation, that everybody's chasing the client on the internet side, but the client is not on the internet side. They're actually in the event or the social side, I would say, is where we get the clients up there.
Yeah.
So once you have clients, what's been your strategy to retain them? Like sometimes the campaigns don't work with them. Like retention is the biggest challenge in a digital marketing agency business. So what's some of those measurements that you take in order to retain a client?
Getting into the crux very quickly, Saurav. So I think, I think different segments of customers have different retention rates we have seen. So startups generally are a little bit more volatile because their business model itself is volatile and they are trying to get to a scale at, a very rapid pace, and things can change overnight. So what we try to now segregate is like the retention of like longer term clients and what percentage of our revenue is coming from stable clients, which is like the BFSI or, a retail client, where it's very difficult to lose a client just because of a temporary dip in performance. So those brands actually look at a more sustained impact, and the retention, you can retain a client for even 5 to 7 years without any like hiccups, right? Whereas a startup, I think if you retain them for 2 years, you've done a really fabulous job, because 2 years in a startup is like 10 years in a traditional company in terms of the pace of innovation, the ability to like accept new ideas. So for them, if you keep doing the same thing for 3 months, it already feels like, hey, this agency is, complacent. Whereas in an established organization, they actually want you to be stable and do the same thing with better quality, better refinement. So I think our retention rates are much higher. I think 2.5, 3 years for the enterprise clients and probably 1.5 years for the startup ecosystem.
I think the other thing we also done is, one is expectation settings at the time of onboarding, and what are you trying to achieve, right? Because often we've seen brands that leave us in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months are actually ones that started off on the wrong foot, right? They wanted something, whereas maybe the expectations that or the reality of what we could deliver was very different. And I think that expectation setting often we've seen help solve a lot of those problems. And second, we also have a very strong rigor internally on tracking this, how satisfied our clients and what can we do, and which of our leaders can actually go and intervene if there's a challenge. So that rigor of figuring that out has also helped us sort of keep that.
That's nice. I think communication plays a very important role here. So, is there any communication pattern in your team where, let's say, every Monday there is a mail that's going to the client, or there's a call on the that's done on a Friday? So, is there any process that's been set which where the client feels that, oh, this company is always chasing us or sending us regular reports?
I think we actually have like a pretty strong like service and like impact culture. So our teams generally interact with our clients like on a daily basis. So, and then you obviously have structured daily reports as well, which are, automated through our own tools as well as on like Excel sheets using API, etc. And then you have weekly reports and monthly reports. So I think the reporting is quite extensive, and that's actually not for the client as much, even for our own uh, team and process to actually have that impact. You need to be on top of things daily. So what we have seen is, in some instances, it's okay to forget that this is for the client and just look at what's required for the business impact. And then automatically, once you start doing that, the client knows you're fully leaned in, because there's no point in reporting something redundant. For example, in SEO, there's not much which is going to change on a daily basis, for example. Right. But on the media side, things can change even within half a day, for example. So I think depending on the initiative, deciding the frequency of sharing it with the client. But in general, for most of our clients, I'd say daily connects are, on par.
I think with bigger companies, they also have this fear of losing the agency, and the change is not something that they want quite often because people keep changing inside the organization. But the agency is the one which understands the history, and I think that's the reason, which I think many agency owners don't understand. They chase the smaller clients first than chasing the bigger ones, which I think is a very valid point that you guys shared. And reporting system, talking on a day-to-day basis, I think that's also very interesting to hear.
Sure.
So, do you rely more on leads and referrals, or do you pitch your clients? How do you get your clients, basically?
So we have like a pretty strong like inbound engine, thanks to LinkedIn content you were discussing in terms of creating that visibility. Vikas has been doing a lot on LinkedIn, and maybe you can share a bit about it. But generally, historically, also around 85% of our business has been inbound leads, either through our website or through references. I think in the startup ecosystem, references work much faster, whereas in enterprise it takes longer. But what we have seen is in general, even like most enterprise, like one large bank we are talking to in Bombay, they had attended our event like 3-4 years back, and then somehow they're connected with our content on LinkedIn and then had reached out when the RFP was rolling out. So it's like a 4-year journey to kind of build that trust, whereas most of the others are like the big 3 or 4 global agencies, but they ended up calling us because they'd seen us at some event and then followed our LinkedIn content. So I think similar to the digital journeys, it's not like you can attribute to one particular initiative. You keep doing multiple initiatives. Some directly generate leads at point X, but some can also have an impact much further down the road. So when I think LinkedIn content, very difficult to say that this piece of content is going to drive a business for me, both in the B2B side for us, and also we are seeing in the consumer side, like Zerodha is doing a lot of content out there, right? The founders, I'm sure it's driving a lot of consumer traction also for them, but they can't say that, hey, this podcast got me 1 million. So similarly for us also, I think it's attribution is difficult to completely fix, but we know that these are the 3 or 4 initiatives which are actually driving us new business growth.
So LinkedIn first is what Vikas looks at.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is where we started that journey, and today trying to expand it to other channels. But our target audience of CMOs, founders, CXOs, definitely those folks are far more active on LinkedIn, or at least where we want to be present and where they can find out the expertise that we have. It's much easier, and I think of course, now we're trying to do it on Instagram and YouTube as well, but LinkedIn has been very powerful, and we are actually seeing that feedback from those prospects as well, that this is one of the reasons why they started reaching out to us. But I think it's a combination, like Sunil said, it's a combination of what they see digitally, the combination of when they talk to platforms like Google or Meta or Amazon, what are they hearing about us, and then they look at what's happening digitally, and that's when they start putting those together, saying, hey, we should explore them as well.
Nice. So when you speak about LinkedIn, so what are your 3 top content style that you think may inspire your audience to take a decision?
Yeah, I think on the B2B side, the challenge is it's a collective sort of buying and collective confidence, right? So you need to kind of look at different buyers. So which is why even when we look at the content, one of the key things we look at is, who are we talking to? Are we talking to the CMO, or are we talking to the CEO or a CXO or a founder? Because you would talk slightly different things for them. So I think that's one thing we definitely kind of look at. 2 is, I think video is obviously growing massively there. And I'm sure you've been creating content on the video front for many years.
The original content guru, yeah.
So you probably know it better, but I think videos which kind of help solve for certain things, or videos that can talk about a problem solution approach. I think that's something that's really I think working for me, and I'm sure for others. And finally, last piece that I've seen work there is something that's not as commonly known. Right? Like I did a content on how some of the richest Indians are actually not in the metros. Now, it's not obvious. That fact is not obvious. So then how do you bring that out in an interesting way? I think those are really good content hooks to work on.
I think it is like even at the airport, like a couple of weeks back for an event with Meta, and someone recognized me, like we had never met him, at the airport because of LinkedIn content, He walked up and said, I've seen your content on LinkedIn. So I think definitely the impact is like much stronger than one would assume also, because even we wouldn't assume that it's reaching so many people at that level of depth where they can recognize you. And obviously if they do, then the trust factor is much higher than, for a new brand company, for example.
Amazing. I think a lot of agency owners focus more on Instagram than on LinkedIn. But I think this is a learning, because there is a lot of clutter on Instagram, and especially the takers are not as serious as the audience on LinkedIn wanting to take a business decision. I don't think people really take the top line business decision sitting on Instagram, but yes, on LinkedIn. That makes sense.
I think for the creator economy or education, I think those areas Instagram can still work very well. But I think enterprise sales probably much stronger on LinkedIn.
So there's a whole lot of confusion in the digital marketing agency sector today, like especially people who are starting their new agencies. They keep asking me this question: should I be niche focused, or should I create a broad spectrum agency? This is like the question that they have on their mind. What would be your answer?
Yeah, I think if you're starting in 2025, I would start niche. You can always grow and become broader and sort of add more solutions. But even we started with 1 or 2 key solutions, right? And we actually started with performance marketing and media as our core, and then we started adding more things as time went by, or as clients started asking us for more things. But it's always good to start with 1 or 2 things that you're really good at. And today, in today's world, like the creator world, even the agency world, there's so many agencies at different spectrums, at different price points, with different expertise. Some are focused on B2B, some are focused only on a certain sector like BFSI, or some are focused only for startups. So it's pretty varied, right? So you have to find that niche, which could be sector niche, it could be a solution niche, and then go deeper from there.
I think if I can step in there, I think, the number of agencies in India is disputable, I think, but the estimates are between 7 to 10,000 agencies, and probably this excludes like freelance setups, but just organized agencies itself is a large number. So I would most young talented folks, I would say don't start a traditional agency at all, either niche or broader ones, because like when we started 10 years back, that time it was a new space. Today it's not really a new space, everyone's doing it. So today I think like the new era is using like technology and AI to build something which is very different from outcome basis, right? So I think if I have to like start myself or like guide someone who's younger, I would tell them to think of it from a tech-first approach of what's not there today, and probably disrupt like the complete agency model, right? There are folks who are doing like videos on demand, from briefing to like the output in like 2 minutes, right? So you sit in the meeting itself and like the creative is out at the end of 2 minutes, not like you go home and then ideate and then create the video. So it's like rapidly changing, and you can see that even Meta, Google are investing billions of dollars on AI. So this is not a race which is going to stop. So I think looking at it of what some of these larger platforms are doing, and then what can you do which enables the enterprise ecosystem to actually leverage those tools, because always there will be a gap. Otherwise, enterprises can do it themselves, but there'll always be a gap of talent, capabilities, technology within enterprise companies to implement the full solution. So there are always going to be nice uh, pockets of solutions which help the brand achieve the business outcome, and those are the gaps where you can actually create much larger organizations. For us to reach like 10 million in our revenue takes like a long time, as you know, right? But I think today, because of technology, your space can be a more global audience. You don't have to target only Indian clients there. And I think then the revenue potential is so much higher, faster. So that's kind of what I would suggest.
I agree. Totally agree with both of your points. One is niche, yes, and second is tech first. With a lot of AI innovation, I could see a lot of young guys now doing so many crazy things out there. Because I have few more questions about AI as we'll proceed, because I think that's changing the whole digital marketing agency business today. We'll discuss that in some time. Um, there's huge crowd, like you said, about 7 to 10,000 agencies in Indian market. How did Social Beat stand out there?
Yeah, I think, when we started out, we had a vision to like be the largest in South India. That was the first vision. And then like after 2, 3 years, when we started seeing traction, I think we put a vision first that we want to be one of the largest independent agencies. I think that helped us work backwards from what would it take to become one of those agencies. So one is obviously the quality of talent which comes in has to be best in class for us to become the top agencies. And second is the technology and capabilities you require as well has to be ahead of most of the others. So based on that, we made investments in like a human resource officer who joined us, and the level of investment we could make was actually 1 or 2 levels more than what the organization could even afford at that point. But we knew that that's the only way for us to leapfrog from where we are today. So, and I think the only challenge which comes from these investments in tech or HR, for example, is that some of these bets will not work out. So, you'll take a significant bets across like 5 areas, and then 2 or 3 will work out. So, you have to be okay for a couple of them to not work out. Like we had also invested in very senior talent for new business in different geographies, and that was a complete like disaster for us, and it burnt a lot of money, but it was compensated by a couple of investments in tech and in talent which really took off. So I think that my learning is like, once you set the vision and then start working backwards in terms of what will it take for doing that, and make those investments with the conviction that, hey, I will get there sooner or later, and there you will fall sometimes as well, and that's always tough, because then you question the next time you're taking a large decision whether it's going to work out. But once you know the goalpost that you want to be in the top, then it's easier to make those investments, because if you don't, then you're anyway not going to achieve your vision in that sense.
And I think one more thing is, obviously, like Sunil said, the internal part of the talent, the culture, that's an important part of who we are. But what really also helped us is the external side of driving those outcomes with the agile team and the culture that we had. So driving those business outcomes, and we never came from the creative backgrounds at all, both of us. So that actually in some ways helped us, because we were thinking business first always. Our clients wanted to see the business results, and we were able to kind of work with them to achieve that. And that was an important reason for even platforms like Google and Meta to kind of say, hey, we want to partner and grow this together. And I think they were also in a growth phase at that point. Today, they're obviously far more mature, but I think at that point, we were able to get a lot more support from them, and that's also helped us over the years to grow and scale and stand out from the rest, because the outcomes and the platform support and that thought leadership around that's really helped us as well.
Nice. So we've also gotten into a lot of product businesses like influencer.in, and there are quite a few other D2 scale, right? So I've seen this is the culture of agency businesses. They pivot into products and then they start to focus on that. Why do you think so? And what is your learning out of this?
Actually, not that easy to like pivot, because the DNA is, like even for a automation startup like D2 Scale, it's much easier like to set up like a separate team which only uses tech to do analytics and automation than to move an existing ship. It's like the Titanic. The ship is going, and they're used to a certain style, so they're not going to shift very easily. So what we have seen is usually a separate team which has only that mandate and is not connected to the services business. Then it takes off, because if you have the same team, then the services business will always like take away more mind share, and also the revenue target is a higher priority for that team, whatever said and done, than whatever the long-term revenue impact of this initiative will be. So having a separate team which does not have a short-term revenue target, but has more milestones in terms of what will it take for the product to take off. So like for influencer.in, now we get around 2,500 to 3,000 signups from brands every month, So that was a target which we have set is around 5,000 signups a month actually. So then it's really a large canvas of small, medium and large size brands which are starting to use the product on a regular basis. But the revenue impact is like 2 to 3 years down the road. So when the D2 scale investment, we have a separate CTO, a separate team, but it is tough. I think we struggled for 2-3 years. We went to many like SaaS founders. They said, hey, you can't do services and product together.
So I think what we focus on grows. That's also one of the learnings. And also it becomes a least priority, right? Because the team starts to treat it as the least important client.
If it's the same team, yes.
Yeah, it's the same team, yes.
100%.
So you said that we've set a different team for
100%. Yeah, actually
but they work together in the same place.
Same office, but we set it up as a separate legal entity also, so that we could like if required raise investments, etc. But I think whenever one is doing that, we need to do proper like tax planning and stuff. We then do some of those things, but I think separating out the tech company also helped just from a focus, even like partnering with like a Meta or YouTube. When they saw that this is a separate company now with like a separate leadership, separate team, it gave a lot more credibility than like
just the part of an agency,
that's right. So I think it's like influencer is a 50-odd member team, so it competes with like the largest in this space in India today because it's a separate business unit. So
and the challenge is, if you're running only a service business, your average revenue that you can get from per team member, right? There's a limit to it. You can increase it to a point, and then there is linear growth, and that's really where a lot of the product and the ideas
also.
Yeah, sometimes diminishing growth, because as you add more leaders, as you start increasing your leadership strength, actually your revenue per team member might actually even come down, and we've seen those cycles, right? And I think and with AI it gets better for sure, but that's really where the challenge is. That's why the productization or AI and tech are required to increase your move it to a more non-linear growth, and that's really when we started thinking about it. But it's not been easy. It's definitely been one of the toughest things.
Also with a lot of change, that it needs a lot of innovation, and then when it goes out of focus, I think innovation gets compromised. Do you think, is it valid thought, or what do you think about that?
What sense?
I'm like, let's say it's influencer.in for that matter. It would need constant innovation because now there's a lot of tools up there. For example, Modash for that matter. There's a lot of other tools in the market which are innovative, and they're trying to bring in AI into it. So when I just feel that if it's a separate entity, then I think there needs to be an innovation team also involved in the process, just not serving clients, but also helping us figuring out how to make the product better.
Like the product company, the DNA is not like that much client first in that sense. Okay. You have to first think of your product and USP and why the brand would want you compared to others. So it's a little bit less about.
So there's a different vision set together.
Yeah, I think you have to think a little differently and then say, okay, what product is going to drive the brand impact that the brand comes to us, and the pull effect has to be much stronger because you can't really have like a large sales team and like sell it. Some large organizations do it, but even there, the pull effect of the product is very strong. And like Salesforce has like sales leaders across the world, but if you see the percentage of like talent cost in sales versus tech would be the bulk of the talent cost for Salesforce because they're innovating on the product, and then they have a small sales team to go meet the enterprise leaders to close the sales, but bulk of it is the pull product because the product is good enough that clients are going to sign up after 3 meetings or 4 meetings, right? So it's very different from the services mindset actually.
So for a digital marketing agency owner, when they think of scaling up, the first thought is opening offices across the country. So you guys have an office in Chennai, Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay. How did this happen, and how much of this is impacting your business or helping your business?
Yeah, I think, we started thinking about this when somebody gave us the feedback saying, don't be stuck in Chennai as a Chennai-based agency. And, that somehow stuck to us, and we said, hey, okay, let's start Bangalore. That seems to be the easiest. And by then we already had one client in Bangalore. We said, why not we set it up? And, Bangalore somehow was an easy win for us. We had somebody from our team in Chennai who'd been with us for a few years, who was willing to move there and started with us. And we actually worked closely with him to set it up. And he continued to be with us for many years and built it out. And that was, I would say, easy. Whereas like Bombay, for example, we actually tried it 3 times before we got it right. And we had 3 different sets of teams we hired over a period of 18 months. The first team left, the second team left. And then finally we had somebody move from Chennai to Mumbai, and that's how it happened. Even Delhi, we had somebody from Bangalore move to Delhi from our teams to set it up. And I think, that moving that culture that we have to the new office, I think is the toughest part. And that's probably why our initial Bombay teams didn't manage to make that work, because we hired local teams there and trying to do it ground up. I think that was very, very challenging. How's it helping us? I think it helps us be closer to clients. It helps us, move the sales cycles much faster. It allows us to be in touch and do those reviews at a more sort of periodic basis. And that's really helped client retention and, being able to do more amazing work for those clients.
Nice.
Yeah. Mumbai is our biggest office revenue-wise, actually. So Chennai is only 20%.
Obviously.
Yeah. And I think like one learning over there worth sharing is also like, you like generally in the services business, look to scale the talent cost along with revenue growth. So, you'll hire 3-4 team members, wait for clients to come in and then set up like a strong team. What we realized after the Bombay like learnings is like quickly get to like 10-12 team members, because then it really feels like office and an organization which is there invested for growth. So we grew Gurgaon like with like a 10 to 12 member team within 3-4 months. We said, let's just onboard the right talent and then clients will come. It might take a little longer, maybe you might lose out, but then the stability and the culture is starting to get built in the organization. So which we didn't make that investment in Bombay, and it took us 18 months to get it right. So if I have to do it again, like I'd say like start with a 10-12 member team. Know that, okay, I'm going to get 5-6 clients in the city in the next 6 months. How am I going to service them, right? Don't think you're going to service them from a different city.
I think 2 biggest learnings. One is to have the core team member coming from your core team, from where your base is. It's very important because somebody has to transcend this culture to a new city altogether. Because also the trust factor of having the top leader, not a new person, but somebody you know and you understand the ethics of that particular person. And second is, what I really learned is from your Gurgaon offers, you said that you had 12 people at a stretch. Whether was it profitable or not, that was secondary, but it looked like a full-fledged business, so that when the opportunity comes, you guys don't have to sit down and hire and sit down and discuss culture with the new set of people out
When
there?
clients ask how many team members in Delhi, you tell them it's 3 members. They're going to question whether you're a overnight operator and not going to be there after 6 months. And you tell them it's a 12-member team, and with the vision that this is going to be a 30-member team in like 1 year, then they know that hey, this organization is going to be stable.
So, how do you describe your leadership style, both of you, and how it has it changed over time as a team grew?
Continues to change.
That's true.
That's a that's a tough one. I think at least my leadership style is more. I like to delegate and sort of coach. I think for me, it's always about being able to do more with the team that I have and we have, and being able to kind of empower them to do. So I don't micromanage at all, though there are periodic check-ins to see how things are going. But pretty much hands-off sort of experience. Two is I also try to do a lot more structured sort of learning, and I think that I also enjoy doing that, but it also helps the teams pick up things that are important to fix, and that's really been important. Otherwise, we have fairly common values in that sense, being humble but still being ambitious, and all of those base values really help us as well. But yeah, maybe Sunil can add.
Yeah. No, I think as a person who others look up to, I think the first thing is definitely to have a clarity of thought in the direction which the team or the organization is going, and sharing that explicitly with the team, and taking regular step backs to make sure that that's on track or not, right? Because as today, talent is anyway hungry. Like, we've been blessed with a great team, and folks are ambitious, hungry, hardworking. So you don't really have to drive folks to do things. I think what they usually need is a purpose of why we are doing something, and when things are not working, for someone to also be there to step back and understand why it's not working, break down the problem into what are the key levers which are working and what's not working, and then try and fix those areas, right? So I think that's where I see my role is, in terms of putting that vision out there of why we are doing this in terms of the purpose and the goalpost, and then doing regular check-ins in terms of stepping back and understanding what's not working. I think a lot of the operational work, I think at talent, even at age of 20, is pretty hands-on and smart today. So you don't have to really guide them. Tech tools, so many of them are ahead of us as well. We can get trained on some of the tech tools which our creative team uses, for example. So not really a role to play, but somewhere I think the bigger picture gets missed out because the team is in the weeds and doing it day in, day out. They don't see how we can package a particular solution, or where are they going wrong with setting client expectations, for example. So stepping into those areas and helping them solve problems, I think that's how I see it.
Makes sense. You do a lot of leadership summits year on year. How does this really help your business get potential clients or get the visibility? What's the agenda behind it? And why should a digital marketing agency do an event of their own?
So it is a sizable investment every year, but I think it depends on the vision. Like, when we set it up that we want to be one of the top agencies in the country, then you have to do these events. How are you going to stand out? If you see consulting firms, like I used to be at Bain, they'll have summits for the private equity sector, for banking and financial services. They'll have roundtables. So they will push the conversation in terms of where the industry is headed and what are the current problems, how are people solving those. So we didn't start these with a mindset to get clients. Obviously, it has a long-term impact. But I think, how do you position with the right leaders that, hey, we are an organization which is serious about driving innovation for you to get business outcomes. And then the rest, and those conversations have helped us a lot. I think last time I had this head of digital transformation from Brigade, Mr. Smarjit there. And I learned a lot of how Brigade is transforming internally, not just on the marketing side, but entire organization is becoming tech enabled, and how with a small lean team, they are aligning people incentives across the organization to adapt tech, because there are a lot of resistance, a lot of issues get flagged when tech starts getting used. A lot of misuse of resources also gets flagged. So there'll be a lot of pushback from people that, hey, this is not working for us, but how they're able to drive those, right? So those insights actually help us think a lot about how are we fitting into those problems, and those then translate into better client outcomes for us.
Amazing.
No, I think you covered it. I think it also helps us generate a pipeline, right? Because the moment somebody registers for the event, it also is a good pipeline for our sales teams to say, hey, which of these would make sense? Let's reach out, and that becomes part of the funnel in the coming weeks and months.
I think it's also one of the best strategies to retain your existing clients, because I see that you get them as guests, so they feel privileged to be on a stage, and plus their team members are sitting and watching. So I think a very smart strategy out there. Um, as a leader, managing 300 plus people is gonna be definitely a big challenge, because it's agency is all about people. What have been your biggest challenges and lessons from that? Like one or two biggest challenges.
Yeah, I think incentives and performance management has been a big learning for us, and I think we're still getting better at it. I don't think we're fully there yet, but being able to align the vision down to each of those teams, I think that's been something we are getting better at, and I think large organizations, that's really what they figure out, and what even Suneil is mentioning about the brigade example. How do you incentivize them to do the things that are really important to the organization and the vision that we have? And as you trickle it down, it gets harder and harder, because the person who just joined you, who's a 21-year-old, and aligning their incentives to what we want, I think that's really gets hard. So that's one big part. I think second is, as you also get in more external talent to become leaders, or get more experienced leaders into the organization, the culture starts evolving, because they bring in their own nuances, they bring in their own leadership styles, they bring in their own experiences into the organization, which obviously helps, but at the same time it starts molding your culture in a different direction. And if we are not sitting there, for example, we both are based in Chennai, so the culture molding in Mumbai, it's very difficult to bring it closer to what you want, because you're not sitting there on a daily basis. So even that becomes a challenge. So finding the right senior talent to be part of the organization is definitely a big learning for us. And we have had challenges in the past where we had to let go some senior leaders, because either they didn't fit into the culture that we had, or they were not being able to drive the outcomes with the same agility that we would expect somebody to do, right? So that there are obviously leadership and leadership hiring learnings that we've had over time that have really sort of helped us. I would say these are the two big parts. Yeah.
I think also empathy and trust, I think difficult to scale, but I think we have tried to stay true to that vision of, because there will be folks at certain points who don't perform as well. They could have any issues, family issues, mental health issues, personal health issues as well. So being empathetic to them during those periods, understanding their circumstances. For top performers, also understanding their motivations and need for speed for many of them, and making sure that their career paths are aligned for that need for speed. Right, it's not like the same track and same goalpost. I think we've been able to try and have different tracks of growth historically, depending on how well that person is doing. So you could be a 30-year-old who's becoming a very senior leader, and we have one, and she's grown like 2x of what the others, right? And there are 3-4 folks like that who have really outperformed compared to others, and that's because they have put in that hard work and driven that business impact, both for social beat as well as the client organizations. And I think the second is trust as well. I think Vikas described micromanagement. I think staying away from that and trusting people unless given reason not to trust also has helped. And it's I think even folks who come from other organizations, they'll be like, okay, how are you trusting easily? This can be misused. But I think staying true to that vision has helped us, because then people because 90% of the people are going to be very trustworthy, maybe 95%. So you take that 5% and then start applying policies which you only want to apply for 5% on the entire organization. That sends the wrong signal actually. So I think we try and see, okay, what do 95% of the people want? Those 5 5% find other ways to like fix it instead of applying policies for the entire organization to penalize for that 5%.
Either we fix those 5% itself then.
Yeah, you'll always keep getting new 5%.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
You have to keep churning them.
You have to keep churning. We have no other choice.
Or you give them feedback to improve it. Some of them do.
That's
so.
true. It starts
Yeah.
with feedback, but then after some point of
Yeah.
time, when we just can't take it, we
I
have
think
to
some do turn around as well. I think that feedback is a wake-up call for
Yeah.
some of them because they're coasting along and they're young talent and, you know, they don't realize.
So in my agency, one of the biggest challenge which I have been facing the last 2 years, it's not been the case before, especially the millennial managers coming and telling or complaining about the Gen Z employees, the Gen Z workforce, and the attitude towards not listening to the managers, or they don't care kind of an attitude. I'm not sure if you guys are facing this challenge, but I have been facing this a lot, and it's never happened. I mean, in my
Right.
agency, like last 1 decade, it's never happened. In the last 2, 3 years, I've seen this a lot, where I don't see that, especially the Gen Z, they don't find to be culturally fit for the organization, or it's very difficult for the millennial managers to understand them. So, have you come across challenges like these?
Yeah, I think, the batch that graduated during COVID, I think definitely that's probably where the batch we've also seen challenges, right? So somebody who was studying virtually for 2 years, or maybe some of them even the whole 3 years, they were almost virtual. I think they're definitely the mindset of what you want from life, the mindset of work-life balance and how you do things, that ethics. I think all of those are different. I think we have seen challenges there, but I think the recent batches that are graduating now, which have actually been studying in college or even done the internships, and I think some of those are actually fine. I think there was an interim period where it was probably terrible, and we've also had some of these conversations internally. But I think the other part is also that as you look at this multi-generational shift, right? Because we also have folks who are probably 45 and then there are 21s. And there's a huge gap there. So that multi-generational talent brings in leadership styles that need to be different. And we also need to adapt for that to happen. And even today, we still have 1 day work from home as an option, right? So you can work from home if you want, which we would have never thought of a few years ago. But we said, no, maybe that talent does require it. And that flexibility, that style of leadership, of being more hands-off, I think we need to evolve as well to give them that space to grow and thrive. And if we continue doing the way we do things, I think that's also a barrier.
Yeah, I think it's more the COVID impact than Gen Z. Gen Z is pretty hungry, more hungry than previous generations.
Running a digital marketing agency business, I think we need family members involved. That's basically what my thought is, or have a friend as a business partner who's very trustable. Like I have my wife involved, so I think I'm able to manage and scale up the agency at this level. You're two brothers running the show. What's your take on this?
Yeah, we wouldn't have lasted without each other, I think. You don't need family. I think you need someone who you trust a lot. And I think advantage of having a brother who, I've seen grow up and he's seen me grow up. So all the fights and disagreements, everything's all done in the childhood itself. So, we've had a very peaceful journey, touchwood, over the last 10, 11 years. And while we have difference of opinion, it never translates into like large disagreements. It's usually a difference of opinion based on logic. And I think once you know that both parties have the best interest of the organization together, it's much easier. I think like my first startup was with batchmate from campus. I think only difference is, when you know someone only for a couple of years, then you don't know them in their moments of elation as well as moments of disappointment. And people are different in those periods of time. And I think with family, you kind of know those points where, where is the break-even point, where do they need support. Whereas for someone else, you probably don't have that same sense check. So my learning is, that build trust is much stronger, and also your level of connection is much stronger to find those points where they need support, where you need to chip in, where you need to be more flexible. And the other person will also reciprocate that very easily.
Yeah, I don't think we'd have done it any other way. I think there's been a great working together. I think the only caveat is, I also have Arushi, who's my wife, who works and leads the influencer business. I think, you have to find ways to not take that back home, right? So we've kind of aligned that Arushi works more with Sunil than me, and I think those kind of boundaries help make sure that you have the right balance, because sometimes you can easily take back all those work conversations to your house.
So how do you not take work conversations to your house? Because at my house, we are largely talking work over dinner table. Or even like when Rishi, I and Meghna are sitting, or even Tanisha, we're discussing work. So how do you stop that?
It comes up. I think so. We live in like separately now, so it's easier. But it's only 5 minutes away, so we still hang out. But that is one separation. But I think from me and Arushi, I think we both are very conscious of it. So we kind of, if we feel it's getting too much, we say, hey, let's pick this up tomorrow morning and not now, right? So you have to be conscious of it. But yeah, it creeps in, right? Because you know the same people at work. You have some clients where you overlap, so it does come up even when we catch up for lunch at home. Sometimes it creeps up, but I think you have to consciously say, hey, let's pick this up tomorrow and not now.
True.
Sometimes it's also good to talk because you're in an informal setting. Some areas it's just easier to discuss than in a office.
Things in office.
You can discuss it, but you're just more relaxed at home, and some perspectives you can share and hear the other person's perspective also in a bit more open manner than in the office where you're all anyway tied up with 100 things and then you're discussing certain aspects. So I think once in a quarter we step back and spend a few hours, ideally outside, just like stepping back, etc. I think those also help for conversations to not creep into your private conversations.
Nice. So if you have to hire a digital marketing person in 2025, what are some of the top 5 qualities that you will see in them to hire them?
I think number one is definitely AI, and how are you using that? And in fact, that's a question.
Would you recruit a human or an AI agent? Like, I think that's the...
Yeah, actually, that's probably a first principle question to ask, but you still need people.
Yeah.
So how are you using AI and technology? And in fact, even from our creative teams, one of the things we've been discussing is, do we need people that maybe absolutely don't know the Adobe and Photoshop and Illustrator? Because people who don't know that are actually going to be forced to use what's out there in the AI world, right? And so I think that's definitely the number one skill set. The other, which we've seen common thread, is just that hunger to grow and scale and continuously learn, and that actually solves a lot of problems. If you have that hunger to keep being curious and keep learning, I think those are two in my mind that are super important.
Yeah, but I think one learning is, if the hunger is very strong, then the person will find a role to match his or her capabilities given enough time period and, ability to churn through different roles. But if the hunger is not strong enough, whatever you do, it's very difficult to make it work for the organization. You'll still most of the time, people who are not performing, we still respect them as human beings, right? There's no change in that, but they're just not working out for the organization. And it usually comes down to hunger and not skill set. Because if they have the hunger, then they'll find some role, either new business, in tech, and automation, in client servicing. There is enough work always in an agency to take up. So the hunger, I would say, is like 1, 2, and 3 in my books, actually.
And one last piece, I don't know whether we have 5, but I think the third one would be around connecting the dots, right? And unfortunately, our school system doesn't help you do that, but being able to connect the dots, because you may not need as many technical skills that maybe we required 10 years ago or 5 years ago, because a lot of that will get commoditized, or AI agents will do a lot of that. We are already working to build AI agents to do, for example, keyword research and come up with topics that you can write on, right? Very easy for a good AI agent with your framework to do that. You don't need a content or a SEO specialist to do that today. So I think, a lot of the technical skills are going to go. So, but your ability to connect the dots, saying this is the business and the brand, this is the content, this is the consumer insight that I have that will work for this content. And I think that also AI can do, but you can probably be better at it. And that's really where the talent need to probably look at.
There's a new terminology for this, and it's called the vibe marketer. Somebody who understands the vibe and then is able to pull off resources to get things done. And these are tech resources, not human resources. Like, oh, there's a situation, there is AI, there is this tool, get things done, because he understands the vibe of the situation.
Changing a lot. It's
Yeah,
a
it's
challenging area for our HR team.
So dramatically changing now.
That talent is also not like widely available, right? People are still learning. So I think also you have to, which is why hunger becomes more important. You find the right folks with ability to learn and you give them the space to learn. I don't think you're going to find ready talent like that very rarely, I'd say. Most of the time you'll have to groom that talent in-house.
How do you plan and prioritize your daily task as an agency owner?
Vikas is better at it than me.
Yeah, I'm pretty structured. So I think, it starts with putting down, first you put down what your priorities are. And often, even when I talk to some of our leaders, I think that's often where the challenge, because you're running around, you always have clients, you always have teams, you have different things you're solving for. But just sitting down and taking on those 10, 15, 20 minutes to say, hey, these are the priorities for the week or for the day. I think it starts with that. And then from there, how do you allocate time? And often I also allocate time for things that I need to do. So if I need to spend time figuring out how to use AI for a specific piece, let's say on content with the content ahead, you need to take out time and spend that time to do that, even if it's your own research and your own time, because otherwise it gets lost. So often one is obviously things with the team, things with the clients. Those are easy. You schedule it and make it happen. But also taking out time for yourself, I think that's really helped me at least structure my priorities and make sure we get there soon enough. And also things which are not as periodic, right? Even the content that I create, I take out half a day in the month to do it. And I know you mentioned you do that as well. So, being able to prioritize and say and plan that far ahead so that you don't have client calls and meetings during that half day. I think those are important things. You need to plan ahead, and being organized really helps there.
True.
Yeah. I've learned to become more organized over the years, not super organized. But the way I do it is usually have 3 or 4 priority initiatives for the week, which I know, and those are the ones I look to drive during the week. And the rest is, giving more importance to, areas where the team needs support or like things which are urgent and need immediate attention. So I think that's how I look at having 3 or 4 key priorities which kind of drive my week, and making sure that, end of the week I try and complete those 3 or 4, which could be like an important client pitch or putting a roadmap for a particular product, or, looking at the finances, for example, making sure that things are on track for the year. So having those 3 or 4 priorities, spending enough time on those, because like I don't like to bucket it that I'm going to take only 3 hours for this, and sometimes for me it will take 6 hours. For me, it's difficult to estimate how many hours that will take. But then I'll give those 3 or 4 priorities how much ever time they need to be done till I'm satisfied that it's on the right path.
It's also about agility, right? Because one of the things we internally say is each week is 2% of the year. While everybody may know it mathematically, but putting it in your head saying 2% has gone, right? Like, so you know that you need to move fast. And I think, especially in the industry we are in, you need to close things, move on to the next initiative, to the next project, and keep that moving.
Nice. So what expense or aspects of running your agency you never compromise on?
I think in our agency, the biggest cost as of today is talent always, right? Maybe in 5 years, it'll be like AI and cloud solutions. But I think ensuring that the team is well rewarded for their effort, I think that's something which, even if it hits short-term profitability, I think those we have always prioritized. We've probably not been as financially disciplined for the organization's perspective historically, but we have kind of compensated it for talent. And I think that has resulted in much stronger stickiness of strong leaders who know that they can trust the organization to stand by them through good and bad. So I think when there have been tough quarters, then the teams also stood back and repaid that faith. And, hands down, we've seen that over the last few years. And I think making sure that, when times are good, the talent is also rewarded.
Social Beat is a Google Premium partner and a Meta business partner as well. even earning recognitions like Google's Premier Partner of the Year. How do you build such strong relationships? What's your mantra? How do you crack this?
I think this is an advice actually we got from our mentor and advisor many years ago, saying platforms can really help change the trajectory of the company, and he had seen this happen with Microsoft in his tech venture in the past. So, and I think that advice really helped us, because we then doubled down to to work with them closely. And I think important part is being there when they want you, right? So they may want you for events, they may want you for case studies, they have their own priorities that they need to drive. How do you identify those and work with them to achieve those? I think that's really worked for us. And second is also, they obviously appreciate when you're continuing to grow and scale as an agency, right? And that means it's also about scale and growth. If you are not scaling and growing, actually you become less and less important to them. So it is the number and the math behind it is as important as the relationship, and focusing on that relationship as well.
Nice.
I think we've had one advisor, Shalini, and she was a director at Google, and she played a strong part when she was at Google. And I think it's been 4-5 years since she left Google, but has continued to mentor and advise us. And I think the perspectives she would have is many times difficult for us to see from that same lens. When she's built a $1 billion business, she would get some people much more intuitively why they're performing, not performing, which role is more apparent for them, how should we look at the structure of the organization in terms of team structure. So, talking about business outcomes for clients and, doing the digital marketing stuff, we'll be very good at. But some of these softer aspects in terms of how do you align the right role for the right leader, how do you change things? Because we wouldn't want to change someone's role drastically. But for her, that's BAU stuff, it just has to be done. Just do it. Whatever is in the best interest of the organization, and the individual will succeed because the organization is succeeding, not the other way around. So insights like those have really helped us. And I think Ravi, who's our mentor, as Vikas was saying, had said that you need tailwinds to help you. So who's going to support you in your journey of growth as an agency, right? And today we have Google Meta. We also have Salesforce today, who we are working very closely with. And the reason they are supporting us is because our win means they are going to get 20x the revenue which we are getting, right? So they are very vested also again now to make us successful. So making sure that you align those incentives and also make investments ahead of time in those. It again requires a little bit of doing maybe business which is not so profitable, recruiting talent which is a lot more expensive. So taking those calls, knowing that, hey, then if I do these, then there is a good chance that I get some tailwinds to help me grow faster.
And also, who's hungry for growth, right? Today, an Amazon is also an important partner, because they are competing with QuickCom and they are finding it challenging, right? So they are trying to double down and see how to scale. Or even a YouTube Shorts versus a Instagram Reels. YouTube Shorts is not number one. So is there a way you can support those initiatives that they have around that? And I think those are ways to figure out where is the hunger from the platform side, and can you add value there? And that's how you find ways to make that happen.
Interesting, basically. I think a lot of learnings for people who are going to listen to this podcast, because I don't think they prioritize this. And I think you guys have prioritized this because your mentor guided you this way. And I think this is good learning for us. I think you both network a lot, and I've seen your networking abilities. It's amazing. I still remember, I just want to know what's your networking secret. I still remember Sunil taking me to Vikas's birthday, a long time back, 2016 or 2017. And almost everyone were drunk, and the bill was about 23 odd thousand. So, ye daru waru pilakar networking, is this your style of networking?
That's the Delhi style. That works in Delhi.
Acha.
Sydney, you have to give filter coffee.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had an alcohol party in Chennai. So I think more about forming quality human connections, and I think letting business come if it comes. I think that's been our style, not really pushing very aggressively for business, which we're learning actually is probably also you have to sometimes push aggressively. So we're also learning in this journey, but I think building stronger human connections and also aligning the trust that we are there to support you in that journey, because sometimes it requires like adding additional resources, pushing the organization to do things which it's not comfortable with. But then the client knows that this organization is here to support me. Like we had one client where 6 months we made a loss on that client, right? But it was a big client for us and they trusted us that, hey, this agency is going to guide us in this journey. And now they made a few concessions which are very beneficial for us. So, but it took 6 months of us making a loss and for them to know that we are making a loss. And after that, they made those concessions. So, I think it's not just about human relationships, but I think driving that business impact with human relationships.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is with AI and with whatever is happening around the space, these human connections and networking and events and smaller forums are going to become even more important, right? Because people are going to crave those connections. And somehow we both sort of got into that early on. I remember the very first networking event I went to was when I was all of 18, I think, or something like that, right? Which was the Madras Management Association's annual conference. And I was like, what's happening here? There are like some 1,000 people here. But I think, you grow from there and you start becoming more confident of starting those conversations in a group. And, you need to work on it and keep going for more and more events. I think that's how you get comfortable with it. And once you get comfortable with it, then you start focusing on those few meaningful conversations, right? So even when we go for large events today, I prioritize those 4 or 5 meaningful conversations than meeting 100 people, because meeting those 100 people means nothing because they're not going to remember you. So, or neither are you going to remember them. So even if you meet 3 amazing people that you had a great conversation with and you remember each other, that's a starting point to build a future relationship and make that happen.
Yeah, than going distributing your visiting cards everywhere. True.
The card is irrelevant actually, because today, if they need to find you, actually they can find you digitally very easily, right? So, but it's about having those conversations, and in the end, if you need to give the card, yeah, why not? I mean,
I think ISEC also helped.
Yeah,
we used to be part of ISEC, which I think that organizations also transformed over the years. But when we were in college, it was very focused on reaching out to corporates and
So it started from your college days, basically.
yeah, selling like internship solutions to them. It was a non-profit thing to the motto is that if people from other countries come here, we understand their cultures. It's a more peaceful world because you understand the differences and also the similarities with other nations. And I think that both of us were in a department where we had to reach out to corporates. So we started doing that when we were 17, 18. We had the vice president card. So it was, people used to be like, oh, which vice president are you? But it gave us a confidence early on. That time the president of ISEC was a 21-year-old, right? So, and he would sit with Mr. Adi Godrej and Mr. Ratan Tata, etc. So we saw that actually there's not much which differentiates folks who sit with those leaders versus a normal person. I think you just need to aspire for it and then find where the opportunities are. And then, you can connect with very senior leaders as well. Or you can be happy in your own universe also.
Sure. And today there are enough events to make that happen, actually.
True. I think for me it was PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. So I think NGOs really help at the very early years of your career to learn a lot. Like I think from a PR, marketing, and even networking standpoint.
And confidence.
Confidence, yeah, that's true. Why do you think many agency owners, digital marketing agency owners, feel burnout after some time? They are like, "Bas ho gaya yaar, ab nahi hota mujhse." I've seen this across. Why do you think so?
Are you not there yet?
Sunil knows it.
No, I think burnout happens to everyone at some point in even like very large startups and stuff, right? So I think it's more about pacing yourself and also seeing the journey and whether that next phase of journey is exciting. Because even like for social beat, like the 0 to 1, 1 to 10 or 10 to 100, very different phases. And sometimes like the kind of activities you have to do in the 10 to 100 are so different from 0 to 1, it may not excite you. So then you have grown as an organization, but as your founder, your hunger might be for different activities, which is where I feel the burnout comes from, because you're doing things which you don't really enjoy so much. It could be like organizational problem solving or financial planning for the year, cost control. May not excite someone who's looking at how to best use AI together. So I think then finding the right leaders to drive it, I think I've seen this with one other agency friend. He got a couple of other senior leaders into the organization to drive different areas, and he's doing what he likes. So then, he's not burnt out anymore because he has that support there. So I think that happens in other startups also, we see, I think. So,
Yeah, I think, definitely it is about, for me, it's about two parts. One is, if you are not going to be able to delegate and groom other folks to do what you do, you will feel eventually burnt out, even if you have other co-founders or your own family in it or your friends, because you do need to expand that circumference of people able to do what you do. And second is, if you're not evolving with time in terms of process, in terms of how you do things, in terms of who you're doing it for, and even for us, we've always tried to move up in terms of the kind of work that we do or the kind of clients that we work with, and that's helped us because then you're doing something new, or you're tackling newer challenges with bigger brands or different areas. The influence area is very different. The Salesforce and marketing automation is very different. So you're trying to do new things which are away from what you did 3-4 years ago, and that helps keep that energy going. And that's how you manage it.
yeah. I think mine, like, even the Zomato founder, like Dipender, like, so amazing, like, the way they started like a foodie way website and then built a product and then, like scaled it up, then went for IPO, and now acquisitions, where the acquisitions bigger than the original company, right? So I think looking at how those like key leaders would have evolved, it's significant. What they're doing today will be very different from like 10 years ago, and that's why they're not burnt out. Dipender looks still so hungry for growth because he's transformed what he's doing and, found leaders to do things which he doesn't want to do, obviously.
So, congratulations on getting acquired by a global company. And how did this acquisition happen? And was it planned or spontaneous?
I think mostly planned, I'd say. I think the goal is like we wanted to become a large player in this ecosystem. And I think while independently we've gotten to a certain scale, I think the next scale where we are competing with the global conglomerates, there's one instance of an Indian company competing over there, but then it takes like 25, 30 years to get there, and I think we felt it's better to partner with an organization which has a long-term vision to be a strong leader in the Indian ecosystem with like a global footprint, and that will allow us to leapfrog much faster, both for the Indian market and, the global market is also really opening up in terms of India as a solution center, service center, innovation center. And I think we had a couple of inbound interests, and then we found the right partner to go ahead with. It took like 9-10 months to go through that process. But I think all through that process, we had little doubt that it's, the right call for us. Though you have lawyers and bankers figuring out a lot of details, it takes like, I'd say 30% of a founder's time to, close out all those discussions. But I think alignment wise, whenever there were critical points and, I discussed with Vikas, he'd say, yeah, it's, let's figure out a way because we have to do it for the next steps. So,
And it also allows us to be more meaningful in the media ecosystem, because together we are now almost 5-6% of the media on the digital side in India, and that gives us scale with clients, scale with the platforms, and the expertise that you can then build on top of it using AI and tech. You have a lot more to play with, and that just changes the trajectory of what the next 3, 4, 5 years would look like, and that's important as we look at what's next for the organization.
So, what changes did you guys make in your organization in order to get acquired? If somebody wants to get acquired, if a digital marketing agency wants to get acquired, what are certain important measurements that they need to take in order to be acquired by a global company?
yeah, I think like one, most companies are bought and not sold. So if you're trying to sell, then it's probably not going to be acquired actually. So I think building an organization which you're confident of scaling up and continuing at a certain trajectory, and if it gets cultural alignment with someone else, that your trajectory will change after the acquisition. Because if you're continuing at this rate and acquisition also continues to grow you at the same rate, then it's not really a good acquisition, both for you as well as the acquirer. So there has to be a strong synergy in terms of the revenue impact and the market impact which you're doing. So you can never know the acquirers most of the time. You can't know the acquirers like impact, and today in the agency ecosystem, it's quite crowded. Most of these groups have like multiple agencies under their portfolio. So over there, like one area is obviously where you're niche and you're the leader in that. In influencer marketing, if you're the leader, in Adobe implementation, you're the leader. I think those are the areas we are seeing get more acquisition interest. And broader areas would be someone who's looking to make a larger impact in the Indian ecosystem from where they are today. I think we had a couple of folks reach out around that. So I think focusing less on like selling it and like actually building for scale. I think that's the key part, and not just short-term profitability. Though the valuation is on multiples of profit, generally, if you start focusing on that for acquisition, India is not a deep enough market that you'll get acquired at this point of time for your profitability. So scalability is what I think is the key part, which I think we had interest from a couple of folks because of the scale vision which we had, imbibed into our organization as well.
And I think apart from what Sunil said, profitability is important. And while inherently we as agency owners know that because most of us are bootstrapped and you would obviously prioritize profits, but being able to have that consistency of profits and growing those profits year on year and having the right financial governance which reflects in the books that you have, the auditors, I think that's an important part of that puzzle. And that also helped because, if you have the basics right and your profits are growing every year, that consistency is important for the company to see.
I think like the trade-off is like if you focus a lot on that, then you're not going to invest in new initiatives to drive growth. Say each initiative takes you 2 crores per year as a capital investment, right? In terms of talent or like product development, etc. So 3 bets is like 6 crores of investment. So then if you're focusing too much on your EBITDA, you're not going to make those 6 crores of investment. And I think we are seeing that payoff actually worse. You're better off making those investments strategically than like saving that 6 crores in your EBITDA. So,
but even that investment is still investment from the profits. So it's also how you package it, right? Like that 6 crores that Sunil mentioned is technically profits, but you took a call to invest in, and that's how you need to package it to the acquiring company as well, right? And I think the scale, the profitability, and the ability to do new things with products and AI and tech, I think that's really the space that most of these companies look at.
Amazing. So let's talk about AI in business. I have seen that AI is radically shifting digital marketing agency, including like I had to put a post yesterday. So I just worked on ChatGPT, got it designed and uploaded it. Earlier there was a process, somebody would write a copy, somebody will get the design done, and by the time the process would happen, it would take me a day. But now it just took me like 10 minutes for the decision to happen. So what kind of changes do you see in AI, and how do you think this is going to impact the digital marketing agency business?
Yeah, frankly, nobody knows. but I think a lot of changes. In fact, I was seeing the Sam Altman video from the TED talk that he did a few days ago. And I think the way they're looking at it is transformational, right? Obviously, one is the AI agents and what AI agents could do for us. And I think that's going to be a huge space that we are also thinking of and trying to deploy teams to see how do we create those AI agents and how do we make them better with SocialBeat's framework of how we do things, because that's important. Like, it's not just a generic agent, it's an agent that understands SocialBeat, it understands the brand that we are working for, and like you said, the buy marketer, right? That merger of knowledge has to happen. I think too is, from what Sam Altman actually said, is that they are trying to focus a lot more on memory and how the platform actually understands you deeply over a period of time. So imagine a time and place where you're able to feed in more and more and it keeps understanding you, you're giving it feedback almost like a team member which you're coaching, right? And I think that's really the direction in which a lot of this is heading to, where it will get better at understanding you and giving you the output that you want across whatever it is. Could be development and coding, could be creative, could be scripts, could be even writing the entire content, like you said. And I think that's a big space that is still evolving. Don't know where it's going to land, but I think that's a big area.
Very difficult.
And even, last week we got a brief from a client. In 30 minutes we had a pitch deck ready because we used a bunch of tools, and then we spent the next 35-40 minutes adding our inputs into the deck. And basically 90 minutes from when the client gave us a brief, we had something that we could show them, right? Which is unthinkable. Sure. And imagine when you start doing this across everything that you do, content, media, analysis, the multimodal view that these tools have, and we are testing that out with our products as well, is to show it things and analyze it on our behalf. So essentially, my broader view is that the average and mediocre talent is going to find it really hard, and whereas the mid and top talent, if they can use a lot of this to make it work, then that's where the magic is going to be.
True.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you want to add something?
No, I think looking at in 2000, 2001, like when we were school and college, I think there were only 2-3 big portals like Naukri and Make My Trip, and they were also very early. And in 2010 we had like Flipkart and e-commerce we pick up, and then you have the app ecosystem with Uber, Ola, Zomato from 2014-15 picked up, right? So every 5-7 years there's been a transformational change. Most are saying that this is bigger than consumer internet. AI is bigger than consumer internet. So in 5-7 years, I think it's difficult to imagine, like in 2015, how much impact, like you imagining quick commerce or deliveries or urban clap, a service in 10 minutes for your plumbing, was nearly impossible to imagine in 2015. So I think it's very difficult to visualize in 5 years where this technology is going to take us. Only thing is, it's going to take us very far from where we are today. So only thing we can do is be pushing at the forefront as much as possible with our resources, with our bandwidth and talent. I think being at the forefront, having probably, while it's an organizational initiatives, maybe investing a few folks who are only looking at that approach. So your creative team having only a few people who do not know Adobe Illustrator at all, only know how to use AI tech. So then you're at least pushing the boundaries. Otherwise, the challenge is always there will be new young organizations which only start with a AI first approach, and they are going to scale up much faster, right? As telling in terms of the new areas to start up. So the only way for us to not be disrupted is to use our scale and our clients to be at the forefront of getting those briefs, doing things with AI, which like a younger company cannot do today.
I have 3 observations here. One, like a cousin of mine recently got recruited, and he was recruited as an AI creator. And his role is basically to use AI tools to understand prompt engineering better, give better prompts to bring outputs. That's his role. Like basically, he asked me this question: should I join a traditional agency? And I have a choice to join a company where they're giving me a role like this, but a very less pay. I said, choose this because this is going to really help you shape your AI understanding better. Second, I have a presentation next week. I was talking about a corporate training and like how you guys did your pitch deck. I just used a deep research of ChatGPT, and it did the entire comparison, competitive analysis, everything that I think I would have taken at least a week, or my team would have taken at least a week for me to put that particular perspective together. So I believe, and also, so which I see that it's just saving a lot of time and making team look more productive if this is deployed across, and the ability to handle more. Because one thing I've learned with agencies is people always say, "Oh, there's a lot to do." I'm not sure if that this is, but that this is something that I always hear. I mean, there's a lot to do. I think any organization, yeah, time gets filled. But I think with AI, I can ask them to do a lot now because obviously it's a lot more easier. I mean, you save a lot of your time. Plus, tone can be defined better. So, do you see with time that you're gonna cut down your team size by involving a lot of AI agents?
I think probably not like cut down for sure, but I think it will become more efficient as you scale up. You don't have to linearly scale your talent as well. So earlier, our goals of talent were relatively linear, where we are trying to improve revenue per team member by say 1.5x, right? But today the goal would be how can we make it 3 or 4x of our current revenue per team member. So I think uh, some joblessness growth for the economy. I'm sure, Mr. Modi and the world leaders are working on that. But I think that's what we are seeing as an impact is less roles, less openings, not at social beat, but across our clients, across organizations, looking to do a lot more with lesser number of people. I think people are not laying off right now because still, even to use AI, you need a strong talent pool. So I think skill sets requirements will change. There'll be some redundancies in terms of people who are not able to adapt, but most folks are. I think they are also seeing the existential threat, so they're also evolving. So
Yeah. Because what I've learned is like the senior most designer in my company, and I was telling him that look, I want a logo, and he took 2 to 3 days to get the logo done, and I didn't like it. He gave me 3 logos, and I didn't like it. So I went on to ChatGPT, worked with it in depth. Then I used Canva AI. I took the first. I defined the entire brand voice, everything on ChatGPT. Spent 30-40 minutes to really get the prompt which I wanted. Then I used that prompt on the Canva AI, and I really got beautiful logos which I sent to client directly. And the client is game. He's like, yeah, this is something which I like. So I just realized that the understanding of your existing team about AI is very less. It's not their fault, of course, because the things are rapidly changing. But what measures are you taking in order to upgrade your team with respect to AI intelligence?
No, definitely. I think
sorry.
the change management
With
is
respect to artificial intelligence.
or artificial general intelligence. I think change management is a big part of it, and one is to make them realize that the world is changing really, really fast. So we've actually done a series of workshops internally to show them what's changing, what are the new things happening, and we kind of top it up every now and then with new things that are happening. Two is we've also got paid licenses for all of it and given it to the team, right? So we've got a few paid licenses across all the tools, including the ChatGPT Pro, which is, 2.5 lakhs annually. So we said we need those to also show the team that what it's capable of. So one is to give them that access and make that happen. And finally, we are also now putting this out to clients saying this is what we're doing. So there's also internal pressure to the team to keep showing new things to the clients because we've shown it once, but that's not enough, right? So you have to go back and keep topping up saying this is what I'm doing and this is how we're doing. But I think a lot of it is just change management internally and getting them to
Expectation setting,
yeah,
right?
Because they're used to doing things in a certain way. And even now there are, like you said, designers who would say, this has to be done only the way Photoshop, Illustrator, or visual effects, but actually a lot of that is changed.
True.
You can make things on the fly, and it's not perfect, but a lot of it can be. In fact, a lot of our backgrounds today, I think 80% of the backgrounds that we have in our creatives today are AI generated already, but not the final output because that still requires some changes. But I think it's not far where 90-95% of it can also be done on those tools, and then
AI is also learning this
exactly
with the feedbacks that it's getting. So.
And a lot of the BAU performance creatives, all of that actually we are actively seeing how tools can do the heavy lifting, and we do the little bit of the thinking and the vibe check and like you said, the nuances of the brand and nuances of the customer. But then the heavy lifting is not the grunt work of saying I'm going to make this into 20 sizes. That's not done by us because we don't need to do that anymore.
True. So one thing I've done with my team in the recent times, I've done expectation setting. I said, if this is your content bucket and if this is your creative bucket, I need at least in a week 3 creatives only produced on AI. So what has happened now is when they have no other choice because the other way is to get the content done, sit with the designer. But now they're trying to figure out how to get those 3 creatives done themselves.
Nice.
Yeah. Pushing them more, definitely.
Pushing them more because it's going to help us more and going to save a lot of their time and they'll feel more confident about using AI.
Yeah.
I think even like for new business, like, we get a lot of inbound inquiries and I don't use a lot of AI today to like do the research and figure out how to build a journey with them. So I think that's something which I'm getting help from Vikas actually to figure out how to do that better and use AI. But because if you start using it, then that's the strongest signal to the team as well, in terms of what you appreciate and value. And if you're not there and you're only asking the team to do it, then it's probably not going to fly that much. So I think personal adoption, while I use it for some aspects today, I think for like account-based management and new business itself, there's a lot of tech out there. So I think next couple of months, that's the goal, is to evaluate some of these tools, experiment, set up a more AI-friendly process, which saves my time, my team some time, and then I think the ripple effects will start hopefully showing from there.
So what I've done at Digital Scholar, this was a 50th batch, and the first thing, thank you. So first thing was to change the entire dynamics of the course. We said it should be AI first. So now the kids are creating their own creatives. They are trying to create their own avatars on Hagen using 11 Labs for voice, trying to figure out video editing using AI. So we're trying to figure out how much can we train them for AI first, so that they are future ready for the industry. We come to the last part of this.
Need to request for some recruitment from your talent team.
Definitely, this batch would be very, very good enough, and I'll definitely put across some profiles to you. So I've come to the last part. This is like a rapid fire, and I'm gonna ask you those questions. Quick one. We just need one word answers here. Okay. What's your daily habit for productivity?
My calendar.
Tennis.
Are you more of an early bird or a night owl when it comes to getting work done?
Early bird for me.
Night owl.
Cool. One productivity tool you can't live without.
Right now, Gemini.
No, none right now. Have to make it one.
Which is your favorite AI tool right now?
Gemini.
I use ChatGPT.
One influential book or podcast?
Sorav Jain. I think Zero Down is obviously.
There's a reason why you are a good marketer.
Zero Down probably right now.
Okay.
WTF. Yeah.
Yeah, Zero is good.
One exciting digital marketing trend for 2025.
I think agentic AI.
I think customer journey.
Nice. Influencer marketing or UGC?
Influencer marketing.
Lines are blurred today.
A quote or motto you live by?
Be nice.
Stick to one thing till you get there.
Nice. What career would you pick if not running a digital agency?
Oh. Be a public speaker.
I think consumer internet.
You are a public speaker already, Vikas.
Not as a career.
Full-fledged, yeah, okay. Who is an entrepreneur you admire and why?
Ratan Tata, I'd say one of the ones I've really admired.
I think, I would go back to Ravi, who's our mentor. I think, he's not well known, but I think, he's helped us because he comes from outside the industry. It really helps.
Favorite way to relax after work?
My son, Ahan.
Yeah, kids and life. Let's not forget the life.
And Arashi.
A surprising hidden talent or hobby?
Ah,
Hidden talent.
hidden talent.
Not something that people know.
I mean, music is a big part of my life, and I've been collecting vinyl records and scaling that collection. So that's a new hobby that I've started. I think that's maybe most people don't know.
Great.
Learning to play the keyboard, it's been a couple of years. Slow.
What's one skill each of you has that the other doesn't?
Vikas is very structured, lives by the calendar, and very far from it. So
I think, big picture thinking and, being able to think ahead.
How would your team describe each of you in one word?
I can tell for Vikas, I'd say organized, structured, and always approachable.
Yeah, for Sunil, I would think it would be always gets you out of your comfort zone. That's how.
Gets you out of comfort zone.
Yeah, it wants you to do new.
I don't try it, but that's the feedback I get.
Good one. Okay. What's one thing you dislike about the agency business?
Delayed payments.
Linear growth.
And what's that one thing that annoys you the most about managing talent?
I think when they don't realize that the world is changing so fast that they may not have a job tomorrow.
Yeah. I think always enjoy working with people. Always there are tough conversations when things don't work out. I think just being taken for a ride sometimes. I think that's probably
Taken for granted, right? When they're not grateful about things, basically.
no, like not putting in that hard work, uh, especially at a senior level. When we've had those disappointments for new business, that's hurt me a fair bit. When senior people, you would expect them to be honest to their work, and we don't micromanage. So
Makes sense. Thank you so much for taking your time, a very, very long time today for this podcast. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of learning for many people out there in India.
No, thanks for having us, and it's been fun. Thanks for the chat.
yeah, very reflective conversation. So thanks, Saurav, and great.
Thanks, Sunil. Thank you, Vikas.
So, whether you're running a 2-person agency or dreaming of building a 200-member team, this conversation should have reminded you of one thing: it's never about the trends, it's always about the mindset. The tools will change, AI will evolve, but how you lead, build, and show up, that's what defines the game. Massive thanks to Vikas and Sunil for keeping it real, and to everyone listening. If this episode made you think a little deeper, share this podcast with someone building something. This is Grow Your Influence. I'm Sorav Jain, and we're just getting started.